A celebrated female boxer had coerced a young black woman into the ring, intending public humiliation. What unfolded next was entirely unforeseen. Well, look what the cat dragged in," Victoria Sterling sneered, her gaze fixed on the young woman who had just entered the exclusive Manhattan gym. "Looks like someone took a wrong turn from the projects." The rhythmic thud of a punching bag ceased abruptly. All eyes swiveled to Alicia Bennett, who clutched a worn duffel bag and sported sneakers on the verge of collapse. Her dark skin contrasted sharply with the gym's immaculate white walls, a place where monthly fees surpassed 3 months of minimum wage. Victoria Sterling, a 2-time women's world boxing champion, was infamous not just for her powerful knockouts, but also for her cutting, provocative remarks. At 26, Victoria had forged her career on social media provocations and controversies, her inflammatory comments amassing millions of views. Her most recent Instagram post showcasing a flexed bicep was captioned, "When you're born superior, equality is a pretense." "Excuse me," Alicia murmured, glancing at her phone's cracked screen. "I believed this was for a scholarship program for teens." Victoria's laughter reverberated through the gym, loud and grating. "A scholarship? Honey, this isn't social work. We train genuine athletes, we don't conduct charity experiments." Dozens of eyes fixed on Alicia. Some empathetic, some curious, some openly contemptuous. She tightened her grip on her bag, steadying her breath, refusing to let the slight faze her. "That scholarship program is indeed real." A calm, resonant voice cut through the air from the office. Tom Rodriguez, the gym's owner and a respected veteran boxing coach known for his impartiality, stepped forward, a stack of papers in hand. His gaze was stern as it landed on Victoria. "And this young woman, Alicia Bennett, is on the approved roster." Victoria rolled her eyes, her expression turning colder. "Seriously, Tom? Are you turning this place into a charity gym? My sponsors won't be pleased." Tom's response was resolute. "Sponsors pay for results, not for you to dictate who trains here." Unperturbed, Victoria closed the distance to Alicia, her eyes gleaming with the predatory focus of a cat toying with its prey. "Well, if she's so desperate to be here, why don't we have a little match? A friendly spar, just you and me. Let's see if you truly merit that scholarship." A deathly silence descended upon the gym. Everyone understood this was no casual sparring session. It was a public shaming, a snare Victoria had laid to prove a girl like Alicia had no place in her domain. Tom turned to Alicia, concern etched on his face. "Alicia, you don't have to do this. You can walk away." But Alicia lifted her chin, her gaze unwavering, her voice calm and clear. "It's all right. I accept." Victoria's lips curved into a frigid smile, believing she had triumphed. She missed the fiery determination blazing in Alicia's eyes. No fear, no hesitation, only fierce resolve and inner strength. Tension crackled through the gym as whispers spread like an advancing tide. Yet Alicia stood her ground, staring directly at Victoria Sterling, unflinching. In her gaze burned a power and resilience so profound that even Victoria recoiled momentarily. Victoria quickly regained her composure. Her blue eyes glinted with defiance and scorn. She stepped right up to Alicia, close enough for their breaths to mingle, and spoke with contempt lacing every word. "I must admit you're either brave, Alicia, or utterly foolish. Do you truly believe that kind of reckless courage will see you through a fight with me?" Alicia remained silent, her gaze unwavering. This only further irritated Victoria. She was accustomed to opponents trembling or lashing out in response to her taunts. But Alicia was different. This only intensified Victoria's desire to expose her weakness and inferiority before everyone. Victoria turned towards the growing crowd, raising her voice in mockery. "Hey everyone, get ready for quite a show today. A match between me, the world champion, and this impoverished girl who appeared from nowhere. I'm sure you're all eager to see if someone like her can even survive one round." Scattered laughter drifted through the gym. A few faces showed discomfort, but no one spoke up. Victoria savored every moment of her dominance. To her, this wasn't just a boxing match. It was an opportunity to assert her superiority, to remind everyone that she belonged in this elite world, and Alicia did not. Victoria pressed on, her tone growing colder, her insults more cutting. "Let's be honest, Alicia, I'm used to facing the world's top fighters, people who know who they are, where they belong. You, on the other hand, you hail from some slum alley, right? I bet your fights happen in dark, filthy corners. You probably can't even afford a decent pair of gloves. Alicia clenched her fists, her eyes burning with anger, but she refused to show any sign of faltering. In that moment, Tom Rodriguez, the gym owner, recognized that things were spiraling out of control. A veteran coach with over 30 years of experience, he knew Victoria was intentionally employing psychological warfare to unnerve Alicia before the match. Tom stepped forward and gently placed a hand on Alicia's shoulder, speaking in a low, steady voice. Alicia, you don't have to do this. I know Victoria. She won't stop until she's satisfied. Don't let her mind games get to you. Alicia met Tom's eyes. Her expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained ironclad. I appreciate that, Tom. But if I back down now, I'll be admitting that everything she said is true. I can't do that through the tension like a blade. You use words like that to belittle me, to make me afraid, right, Victoria? But you should know this. Your insults don't define who I am, and they certainly won't make me back down. I will fight you not to prove anything to you, but to prove to myself that I am not what you think I am. The entire room fell silent. People instinctively stepped back, creating a widening space between Alicia and Victoria. Tom Rodriguez looked at Alicia with both pride and concern. He understood that this bout had become more than just boxing. It was a clash between dignity and arrogance, between human worth and social prejudice. Victoria laughed loudly, shattering the tense stillness. She nodded to her trainer to get everything ready, then turned back to Alicia with a dangerous undertone. Very well, Alicia. Remember what you said. In just a few minutes, I'll make you regret daring to challenge me in front of everyone here, and I'll show you exactly where you belong. Alicia didn't reply. She simply turned and walked toward her corner of the ring. She knew exactly what stood before her. What Victoria didn't realize was that inside Alicia blazed a fire of pride and resilience, a power no insult could ever extinguish. And in this fight, Alicia would prove that the woman Victoria scorned was the fiercest opponent she'd ever faced. As Alicia made her way to the gym's corner to prepare for the upcoming fight, Victoria's mocking insults echoed in her mind like sharp blades, carving into the past she had spent her life trying to forget. She settled onto the small stool and quietly slipped the battered duffel from her shoulder. Her eyes fell upon her old boxing gloves, their leather frayed and split in places, and memories surged back like a crashing wave. Alicia was born and raised in one of Detroit's most impoverished neighborhoods, where narrow streets overflowed with garbage, police sirens pierced the night, and fear lingered in every glance. Her father abandoned them when she was just 5, leaving her mother, Martha Bennett, to bear the sole burden of their lives, raising Alicia amidst poverty, violence, and constant threat. Every day, Martha toiled from dawn till dusk in a dilapidated factory near their home. She returned with calloused hands and weary eyes, but never allowed her tears to fall in front of her daughter. Alicia understood the immense price her mother paid, and from a young age she steeled herself to protect them both. When Alicia was 10, she landed her first self-defense punch. One afternoon after school, a group of older kids cornered her, taunting her ragged clothes and her family's struggles. Fear and helplessness welled within her, and in that moment she chose to fight back. Her initial blows were clumsy, but instinct sharpened them into powerful strikes as she fought with every fiber of her being to survive. Street fights became more frequent until Alicia realized that in this world, weakness spelled danger. She began training daily, transforming her dusty backyard into her personal ring. She hung old, torn heavy bags and drilled them until her knuckles bled. Before long, she was no longer merely a scared little girl defending herself. She had transformed into a warrior, her speed and strength earning the respect of everyone in the neighborhood. Locals began calling her Lightning, both for the swiftness of her strikes and the fierce determination blazing in her eyes whenever she stepped into a fight. Those brutal street bouts forged her into a local legend, an opponent no one dared to underestimate regardless of size or strength. Yet deep down, Alicia never desired a life defined by violence. She recalled one harsh winter night after a particularly brutal fight, returning home to find her mother sitting alone in their tiny kitchen, tears staining her gaunt face. "Sweetheart," Martha's voice trembled, full of pain. "I don't want you living like this. I don't want your fists to be all you have. Life's hard enough. I can't lose you to these pointless battles." Her mother's words cut into Alicia's heart and kept her awake for nights afterward. She knew Martha was right. She didn't want to spend her life fighting just to survive day after day with nothing but her fists and her wounds. She yearned for more. She longed for a peaceful life where no one had to fight to stay alive, and where she could build her future through honest effort and perseverance rather than violence. From that moment, Alicia vowed to leave the street fights behind. She dedicated herself to her studies and took odd jobs to help her mother. She graduated high school with honors and earned a small scholarship to a local college. Her chance to remake her life, to prove she could stand on her own without exchanging blows. When she moved to New York, seeking better opportunities, she promised herself she would never revert to the life she'd known. She was determined to demonstrate that she could live differently, the life her mother had envisioned for her. A quiet, proud life of her own making. But today, in this upscale gym facing Victoria Sterling's cutting, hateful words, Alicia realized there was no turning back. If she backed down now, all the sacrifices she and her mother had made to escape the darkness would be in vain. She fought not only for herself but for her mother, for everyone who had suffered similarly, and for the dignity she refused to surrender. Alicia exhaled slowly and opened her eyes, now burning with resolve. Victoria had made a grave mistake underestimating her. Everything Alicia had endured wasn't a weakness. It was the source of her greatest strength. And in this fight she would show Victoria that one paid dearly for underestimating a heart that had endured far too much. As Alicia stepped onto the training floor, the recent memories still lingered in her mind like indelible fragments. Her eyes now shone with more resolve than ever before. She knew exactly what lay ahead, and she was determined not to let anyone, especially Victoria Sterling, underestimate or hurt her again. Not far away, Victoria lounged on a plush leather bench, scrolling through her expensive phone. She was thoroughly entertained, posting snarky clips and mocking commentary about Alicia on social media. Each of Victoria's sarcastic updates dripped with contempt and overt prejudice, setting the online community ablaze with shares and comments. One of Victoria's latest posts read, "Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the most special match of my career. Me, the world champion, versus an unknown woman from Detroit's roughest neighborhood. This isn't really a fight. It's a showcase to highlight the gap between class and weakness. Want to see this hilarious spectacle? Come down to the gym and witness it live." Those cutting words struck at Alicia's pride like arrows, but she refused to let the spiteful taunts distract her. She focused entirely on her training. Walking over to the heavy bag, she inhaled deeply and unleashed a first punch with such speed and power that the bag shook violently. Each subsequent strike was delivered with astonishing precision and relentless consistency. Across the gym, Tom Rodriguez watched with astonishment and curiosity. He had trained countless fighters from young prospects to world champions, but he had rarely seen someone with Alicia's unassuming appearance throw such flawless punches. Every jab and hook was meticulously calculated for optimal speed and force. Each foot placement and body movement radiated undeniable professionalism. These weren't skills an amateur could possess. Tom realized immediately he had misjudged Alicia from the start. She was clearly no ordinary woman and certainly not the amateur Victoria assumed her to be. Stepping closer, Tom observed her for a few more moments before gently asking, "Alicia, I'm genuinely curious. Who trained you?" "Technique. I must admit few people can execute it so naturally." Alicia paused but showed no sign of fatigue. She met Tom's gaze with sincere, cautious eyes, then replied softly, "Life has been my greatest teacher, Tom. I learned to fight to survive. I mastered dodges and strikes, not in a state-of-the-art gym like this, but on the streets where I grew up." Tom nodded empathetically. He understood the raw truth in her words, the strength born of harsh experience, but he also sensed she was holding something back, perhaps the full depth of the extraordinary skills she possessed. Still, he continued gently, "Are you absolutely sure about this fight? I don't doubt your ability, but Victoria is a world champion. She's not just an arrogant show-off. She's dangerous. She knows how to use her ego to break opponents physically and mentally." Alicia wiped the sweat from her brow and looked Tom directly in the eye, her resolve unwavering. "I understand, Tom, but she crossed the line when she used my skin color, my background, and my circumstances to mock me. She's insulting everyone who's ever come from where I did. I won't let her do that. This isn't a fight to prove something to the world. It's a fight to defend my own dignity. Tom realized he couldn't change her mind. He patted her shoulder, his eyes now filled with deep respect. I understand, Alicia. I've got your back. And remember, no matter the outcome, you're already a winner in my eyes. In the far corner of the gym, Victoria continued filming, her smug laughter rising as her follower count and engagement exploded online. She had turned this fight into a major media event, casting Alicia as an unwilling victim, a pathetic joke in the eyes of the internet. But Victoria didn't see her critical error. By underestimating Alicia, she was making a grave mistake. She was so consumed by her own arrogance that she failed to recognize the woman she tried to humiliate was the most dangerous opponent she'd ever faced. Alicia drew in a deep breath and resumed her rapid, powerful, precisely aimed strikes on the heavy bag. Her movements were no longer merely training. They were a bold declaration against Victoria's contempt, and she knew that soon the entire world would learn she was no one Victoria Sterling could humiliate so easily. The steady thud of fists echoed from Alicia's corner of the gym, forming a solid rhythm that spoke of her complete focus. Tom stood silently, still wondering about the true source of those precise, razor-sharp movements. Just as he drifted into thought, a warm, deep voice sounded behind him, making him start and turn around. She's never changed, still lightning just like always. Tom looked in surprise at the man who had appeared beside him. Middle-aged, with a square jaw and seasoned, stern eyes, he wore simple clothes that stood in stark contrast to the upscale gym-goers. Tom frowned, about to ask a question when the man spoke first. I'm Winston Bennett, Alicia's uncle. I flew in from Detroit as soon as I heard. I thought you, Mr. Rodriguez, should know more about my niece. Tom nodded and listened intently. Winston's gaze softened as he watched Alicia training, pride and concern mingling in his eyes. Ever since she was a little girl, Alicia had to learn to fight to survive. But you know what's more frightening than her skill? Why she had to become so strong. Tom waited for more. Winston inhaled deeply, eyes distant in memory. Our neighborhood in Detroit wasn't safe. Kids there had to fend for themselves against the brutal world around them. Alicia was no exception. Her father left when she was very young, and her mother worked herself nearly to exhaustion to keep them afloat. Alicia had to learn to protect herself and her mom. He paused, voice heavy with unspoken pain. When she was 14, everyone called her Lightning, not just because her strikes were fast as lightning, but because of her iron resolve and pain tolerance. Whenever bigger bullies picked on her, they quickly realized they'd made a grave mistake. Tom shivered at his words, then looked back at Alicia with newfound admiration and curiosity. But that life left deep wounds no one sees, Winston continued, worry threading his tone. She blamed herself every time her mother had to watch those bloody fights. Alicia swore she'd leave that violence behind, that neither of them would ever endure that pain again. After a long silence, Tom spoke. If that's true, why agree to this match? Alicia knows Victoria Sterling won't show mercy. This will be brutal. Winston met Tom's eyes, his gaze razor-sharp, because Victoria attacked Alicia's deepest wound, her pride and dignity. Alicia can't stand by while someone publicly insults her skin, her background, her past. I know my niece. She doesn't fight to prove she's stronger than anyone. She fights to protect the respect she deserves. Tom exhaled slowly. In his career, he'd seen emotional battles, but never such fierce, profound determination in someone like Alicia. Do you think she can beat Victoria? Tom asked sincerely. Winston smiled confidently. I've seen Alicia take down one opponent after another. Bigger, stronger foes even as a kid. She not only has the skill to beat Victoria, but the strength to make her pay for her arrogance. My only worry is the mental scars this fight might reopen. It took Alicia years to heal those wounds. I don't want them haunting her again. Tom nodded, understanding. He knew Alicia faced not just a physical fight, but an inner battle between past and present, between pride and pain. Winston placed a hand on Tom's shoulder, his eyes sincere. I hope you'll support my niece not only tonight, but any time she needs someone to believe in her. Even the strongest need a foundation when facing life's biggest challenges. Tom met Winston's gaze with resolve. Mr. Bennett, I promise I'll stand by Alicia. I'll do everything I can to support and protect her. And no matter the outcome, she's already shown that true strength comes from dignity and courage. They both turned to watch Alicia. He was still training. Each punch not only powerful and precise but driven by unwavering resolve. They knew this coming fight would be more than two fighters clashing. It would be a battle to uphold a person's true worth, something Alicia would never give up no matter the cost. The street lamp's hazy glow filtered through the window of the cramped room where Alicia sat, casting long shadows on the walls that mirrored the turmoil in her heart. 4 nights on end, sleep had become a luxury beyond her reach. Victoria's taunts and cruel insults echoed in her mind like relentless waves battering against the sturdiest cliff. Alicia perched on the edge of her bed, eyes fixed on the window. She had once vowed never to step back into the ring, never to let her fists be instruments of violence again. But now that promise felt more fragile than ever, and deep inside she wondered whether her decision had been the right one. A soft knock at the door pulled her back to the present. She rose and opened it to find her Uncle Winston standing there, concern and affection in his eyes. "Still awake, Alicia?" he asked gently. She shook her head, avoiding his gaze. Winston sighed, stepped inside and sat beside her, speaking with warm understanding. "I know how you're feeling," he said. "But sometimes we can't cling to old promises when circumstances demand we stand up for our own dignity." Alicia turned to him, exhaustion and conflict in her eyes. "But Uncle," she whispered, "I promised Mom and myself that I'd never use my fists again. I don't want to go back to that life or risk losing everything I've worked for." Winston laid a comforting hand on her shoulder, sincerity shining in his gaze. "I understand, Alicia, but this fight didn't come looking for you. You were forced into it to defend your honor. Victoria insulted everything you've built. If you stay silent, she'll never stop. She won't just attack you but anyone she deems weaker." Alicia bowed her head, her eyes warming at his words. Inside her, fear of returning to past violence clashed with her need to protect her self-worth, tearing her apart. At that moment her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. "Tom Rodriguez." She answered quickly and Tom's concerned voice came through. "Alicia, are you okay? I know you're under tremendous pressure, but both your uncle and I believe in your decision and in you. Victoria is leveraging social media to corner you, but I'm convinced you'll show that her contempt is her greatest mistake." Alicia inhaled deeply, her voice firmer and steadier than before. "Thank you, Tom. I won't let you down." The next day the gym buzzed with tense anticipation. All eyes fell on Alicia as she entered. Victoria stood in the center, a smug challenge in her gaze and a self-satisfied smile playing on her lips. Victoria strode up to Alicia, every step radiating arrogance. She stopped and fixed Alicia with a cold, disdainful stare, making sure everyone could hear. "I must say I'm surprised you had the nerve to show up today, Alicia," she sneered. "With your lowly background and unknown track record, I thought you'd have run scared long before now." Alicia forced herself to stay calm, breath quickening at Victoria's brazen insults. She clenched her fists, suppressing the fury rising in her chest, determined not to give Victoria the satisfaction of seeing her falter. Victoria pressed on, her tone as sharp as a blade, each word dripping with provocation. "So I hear your old nickname was Lightning, right? How amusing. An obscure flash from the dirty streets of Detroit daring to challenge someone like me. Do you really think your petty street fighting chops can hurt me?" Alicia ground her teeth, her eyes cold and furious, but she refused to let Victoria see her lose control. Instead she replied calmly and with resolve. "Victoria, you're right about one thing. I did learn to fight on streets you've never dared to tread. And because of that, I know the true value of pride and dignity. This fight isn't about proving anything to you. It's about showing that no matter your titles or your followers, you have no right to belittle anyone." Victoria hesitated for a fraction of a second, surprise flickering in her eyes at Alicia's composed strength. She quickly regained her confidence, curling her lip into a cold smile as she stepped back and taunted over her shoulder. "Very well, Alicia. Hold on to that little spark of pride of yours. In a few minutes I'll snuff it out in front of everyone here." Alicia watched Victoria retreat, her heart pounding not with fear, but with a fierce determination rising from within. She knew the coming fight would be her greatest challenge yet. But this time she would not back down. And in that moment she knew she was ready. The harsh white lights bore down on the center of the ring, their cold beams cutting through the thick tension that filled the arena. As Alicia strode forward with unwavering resolve, The din of applause and murmurs swelled into a vibrant, chaotic soundtrack. Her gaze remained fixed straight ahead, undistracted by the surrounding noise, even though her heart pounded louder than ever. Opposite her, Victoria Sterling climbed into the ring with absolute confidence, her face as cold and haughty as ever. She swept her eyes across the audience and flashed a disdainful, provocative grin, as if to underscore her superiority over Alicia. Cheers from Victoria's fans thundered through the venue, bolstering her near unshakable self-assurance. The referee stepped in and quickly signaled the fighters to their corners. Alicia tightened her gloves and drew a deep, steadying breath. She knew everything would change in this moment. This was more than a fight. It was a battle to defend her dignity and prove to everyone watching that a person's worth can never be measured by their background, skin color, or circumstances. The bell rang, signaling the official start. Instantly, Victoria launched a fierce, unrelenting assault, giving Alicia no time to settle. Powerful, precise punches rained down, as if Victoria wanted to end the match as quickly as possible to reaffirm her dominance. Reporters and spectators alike leaned in, convinced they were about to witness another easy victory for the world champion. But they were wrong. From the very first seconds, Alicia displayed a defensive mastery that stunned everyone present. She moved with effortless grace, evading Victoria's blows with uncanny ease. Every step Alicia took on the canvas was light yet assured. Each bob and weave showed she wasn't merely dodging, she was controlling the pace of the fight. Victoria's brow furrowed in frustration as she realized her flurry of attacks wasn't landing as planned. For the first time she sensed that Alicia was no amateur. She was a genuine warrior with extraordinary defensive skill. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the atmosphere shifted. Cameras zoomed in to capture Alicia's every move, moves they had previously dismissed as feeble. Now they understood this was no ordinary bout. It was a dramatic spectacle, and the small woman in the ring was rewriting expectations. Still, Victoria refused to back down. She clenched her fists, rage lighting her eyes. With a low, furious growl, she unleashed an even more brutal series of strikes, determined to corner Alicia and force a mistake. Yet Alicia remained unshaken. She read every movement of Victoria's body, every weighted breath. In that moment she understood she was fighting not just a powerful opponent, but someone using aggression to mask her own fear. At ringside, Tom Rodriguez and Winston Bennett watched breathlessly. Tom's face lit with pride and astonishment, while Winston's gaze held a mix of awe and concern. He knew Alicia's strength, but he also knew the deep wounds from her past that no one but she truly understood. Back in the ring, Alicia continued slipping and sliding out of Victoria's fiercest blows, her defense so smooth and effective that Victoria's control crumbled further. In a brief exchange of glances, Victoria saw something in Alicia's calm, unyielding eyes that made her hesitate. A serenity, a rock-solid resolve, and above all, an inner confidence, a mental strength Victoria had never encountered. Victoria paused, drawing in a sharp breath, her expression stripped of arrogance and filled with pure fury. "I know what you're thinking, Alicia," she shouted to provoke Alicia, "but don't fool yourself. Those lucky dodges won't win you this fight. I'll make sure you're flat on your back at my feet." Alicia didn't reply. She simply offered a small, confident smile and held her perfect defensive stance. She knew Victoria was trying to get inside her head, but Alicia had been ready for this long before she ever stepped into the ring today. The crowd fell silent. Every eye locked on the unfolding drama with unprecedented intensity. They understood this was only the beginning, and the surprises yet to come would astonish them even more. And Alicia knew it too. This fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. The air in the arena grew thick with tension, ratcheting higher with every passing moment. Alicia held her defensive posture, her eyes razor-sharp and wholly focused on even the slightest movement from Victoria. Across the ring, Victoria Sterling's usual confidence began to crack, replaced by an unfamiliar look of anxiety and confusion. Beads of sweat dripped from Victoria's brow, splattering on the canvas as her physical and mental strength faltered. She shook her head violently, trying to dispel the helplessness, then channeled every ounce of energy into a crushing punch aimed straight at Alicia. But this time Alicia did more than simply evade. She had been waiting for precisely this opening. In the fraction of a second after Victoria's blow sailed wide, Alicia unleashed a lightning-fast counter-punch. The audience barely had time to blink before her fist connected with Victoria's jaw, snapping her head back and sending her off balance. Astonishment rippled through the crowd. Photographers scrambled. Cameras whirred to capture this unprecedented moment. Ringside, Tom Rodriguez's face flooded with surprise and pride, while Winston Bennett smiled softly, his eyes alight with both joy and concern for his niece. Victoria staggered to her feet, panic flashing in her eyes. She had never encountered a situation like this. Her long-dismissed opponent had rocked her world and ignited genuine fear. Fueled by desperation and a refusal to accept defeat, Victoria lashed out with a wild, brutal flurry of punches. Hundreds of invisible punches thrown in frantic hopes of forcing Alicia into a mistake. But the harder she swung, the more she lost control, blundering deeper into the trap Alicia had set. Unmoved, Alicia wove through the assault with effortless grace. Each dodge was executed with uncanny precision, turning the ring into a stage for her controlled, fluid movements. Victoria's chaos only intensified as her attacks grew more erratic. "This can't be happening." Victoria snarled, teeth bared, breath ragged. She hurled herself forward again, determined to end Alicia once and for all. But every punch was clumsy and Alicia slipped each one with ease. In a fleeting exchange of glances, Victoria caught Alicia's unflinching calm and felt a deep dread take root. For the first time she realized she had lost control. Victoria Sterling, the world champion who used to mock every challenger, now tasted helplessness. "Victoria's losing it," someone shouted from the stands. And the arena buzzed with murmurs. Victoria whirled, scanning the crowd. The phones, the cameras, the faces all no longer revering her but watching with a mix of curiosity and disappointment. It was a humbling, frightening new reality. Failure in front of the very audience she once commanded. In a last-ditch effort at mind games, Victoria snapped out a taunt. "Did you think one lucky punch would beat me, Alicia? Don't get cocky. You'll never dismantle the empire I built. You'll always be beneath me." Alicia said nothing. She simply stepped forward, eyes as steady and cold as steel. No words were needed. Her stance declared, "I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm here to prove that no one has the right to demean another." The crowd erupted behind Alicia, their cheers of her name drowning out Victoria's dwindling supporters. For the first time in her reign, Victoria stood alone, abandoned by the masses she once dominated. Alicia advanced, every movement brimming with confidence and resolve. She knew this was her moment to show the world that true strength isn't born from humiliating others, but from preserving one's dignity and courage in the face of the fiercest storms. And she was more than ready to end this fight on her own terms. When the bell rang to start the second round, Alicia strode deliberately toward the center of the ring, her eyes blazing with fierce determination. In that moment, the entire arena fell silent, everyone holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Facing her, Victoria Sterling fought to maintain her usual arrogance, but it was plain for all to see the trembling fear lurking behind her eyes. With obvious desperation and rage, Victoria lunged forward, unleashing powerful swings that completely lacked the precision of a world champion. Alicia, by contrast, remained utterly composed. She slipped each punch with effortless grace, as though she could read Victoria's every thought and intention before it even materialized. Every pair of eyes in the arena was fixed on Alicia, as if they had all realized that this fight was about more than physical prowess. It was a clash of two souls, Victoria's proud contempt versus Alicia's unwavering strength, dignity, and self-respect. Then the decisive moment arrived. Victoria threw a wild, clumsy punch, leaving herself hopelessly exposed. Without hesitation, Alicia seized the opening and unleashed a lightning-fast combination. A crisp jab to Victoria's jaw that wobbled her, followed by a powerful cross to the cheek, and finishing with a thunderous uppercut that snapped Victoria's head back and sent her crashing to the canvas, utterly unable to regain control. The arena erupted in stunned amazement and exhilaration. Victoria Sterling, the haughty world champion who had always boasted that no one could beat her, was knocked out cold. Reporters sprinted forward, cameras flashing to capture this unbelievable scene. Victoria fought to rise, her legs shaking violently, her eyes wide with terror and despair. For the first time in her life she felt the crushing weight of defeat, not just physically but a complete collapse of spirit and pride. The referee approached and counted out the seconds in a clear, unhurried voice. 1, 2, 3. Victoria made a final futile attempt to stand, but her legs refused to obey. All her strength, her arrogance, her former confidence had dissolved under Alicia's relentless will. 7, 9, 10. The referee's decisive declaration sealed it. Alicia Bennett had won by knockout. The crowd leapt to its feet, thunderous applause shaking the arena like a storm. Voices roared, "Alicia! Alicia!" Not just celebrating her victory but the triumph of dignity, resilience, and human worth. At ringside, Tom Rodriguez and Winston Bennett rushed to Alicia's side, their faces shining with pride and emotion. Winston enveloped his niece in a trembling hug. "I knew you could do it, Alicia. I'm prouder of you than ever," he whispered. Tom placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, admiration and joy in his eyes. "Today you didn't just win a fight, Alicia. You showed everyone what true strength really is. Strength born of self-respect and honor." Meanwhile, in the corner of the ring, Victoria Sterling sat crumpled on the floor, head bowed in shame and disbelief. Her fans were eerily silent, their faces etched with disappointment. Victoria looked up at Alicia and for the first time truly recognized her own weakness and insignificance in the face of Alicia's inner power. Victoria had believed that strength came from titles, fame, and the ability to humiliate others to cement her own standing. But now she understood how utterly wrong she had been. True strength wasn't hers at all. It belonged to Alicia, who had carried it in her heart and soul all along: self-respect, courage, and dignity. Slowly Victoria rose, legs still trembling, and looked toward Alicia with a reluctant, newfound respect. Alicia returned her gaze calmly, without a trace of arrogance, only the quiet warmth of humanity. In that moment, the spectators and all who bore witness realized they had seen history. Not simply a famous champion defeated by an underdog, but the victory of the highest, noblest values of the human spirit. Alicia Bennett, once overlooked, had become the new icon, the new hero. And Victoria Sterling, once at the pinnacle, had finally learned in the most humbling way possible that she had been truly vanquished, not just in the ring but in spirit and honor as well. The match was over, but its echo would resound forever. A reminder that in life, respect, courage, and dignity matter far more than any title or status one can claim. As the applause for Alicia still echoed throughout the arena, Victoria Sterling slipped quietly off the ring, trying to hide her ashen face and the desperation in her eyes. She had once believed herself invincible, trusting in the power that fame granted her. But now Victoria felt everything she had built vanish before her, like a sandcastle swept away by a single wave. Just minutes after the match ended, news of Alicia's decisive victory spread at lightning speed across social media and news outlets. Clips of Alicia's perfect knockout were shared millions of times, accompanied by praise for the courage and dignity of the woman who had once been so dismissed. At the same time, Victoria's earlier racist, arrogant remarks were unearthed and widely circulated, igniting an unprecedented wave of condemnation. That very night, when Victoria returned to her luxury apartment, her phone buzzed relentlessly with calls from sponsors. One by one, they delivered the worst possible news. Each company was terminating its endorsement contract immediately. Nike, Adidas, and several other major brands publicly announced they could no longer be associated with someone who had openly displayed racial prejudice and contempt for others. In less than 24 hours, Victoria watched her pride and her empire crumble like a nightmare. Every news headline, every viral video, every social media comment branded her as a symbol of arrogance, bigotry, and disgrace. She sat alone in her darkened room, the glow from her computer screen illuminating her pale face, each scathing online post feeling like a blade twisting in her deeply wounded pride. Desperate to salvage her reputation, Victoria posted an apology video on her personal page. In it, she dressed simply, tears glistening in her eyes, her voice trembling as she sincerely apologized for her thoughtless comments and past arrogance. She said the bout with Alicia had opened her eyes to her mistakes, and she asked forgiveness from Alicia and anyone hurt by her words. But the moment the video went live, it was met with fierce backlash. Instead of sympathy or forgiveness, Victoria received cold mockery and accusations of insincerity. Thousands of skeptical comments poured in within minutes. "Victoria, it's too late. You only regret this because you lost everything, not because you truly understand your wrongdoing. We don't believe your tears anymore. What you did to Alicia showed your real face. Major news outlets covered her belated apology, but all framed it with sharp criticism, arguing she was merely trying to salvage an image now in ruins. Victoria was no longer seen as a figure of strength and confidence. She had become an emblem of bigotry and shameful failure. Things worsened as her longtime fans turned away. Fan pages and support groups that once cheered for Victoria announced they could no longer back an idol who had betrayed ethics and respect. Stores carrying Victoria's branded merchandise were pressured to pull products from their shelves, and billboards and ads featuring her in the city and in shopping centers were swiftly taken down. With each passing day, Victoria felt the isolation and rejection of a society she once ruled. Wherever she went, she met sneers and whispered judgments. No one remembered her as the proud world champion. They remembered her only as a bitter lesson in the cost of contempt and racial prejudice. Even when Victoria sought refuge in out-of-the-way coffee shops, she still felt the chill of exclusion. Once sitting in a quiet corner of a small cafe, she overheard the next table. She used to be the champion, but look at her now. Lost it all because of arrogance and racism. A stark lesson for everyone. Victoria gripped her coffee cup as tears filled her eyes. She understood she could never rewind time to undo her mistakes. Victoria Sterling, who once took pride in her unassailable dominance, had become the living example of the price paid for arrogance and judging others by prejudice. Silently she left the cafe and walked through crowded streets utterly alone, fully aware that everything had slipped away. In her attempt to prove her superiority, she had lost herself in everything truly precious: respect, trust, and dignity. On her way home, Victoria passed a giant outdoor screen, replaying Alicia's knockout in glorious slow motion. In that moment she confronted a painful but necessary truth. Real victory and honor belong only to those who cherish their self-respect and dignity, qualities she had completely forgotten in her pursuit of fame. Victoria Sterling had paid the steepest price for her greatest mistake, and it was a lesson she would never forget. While Victoria Sterling faced the complete collapse of her reputation, Alicia Bennett's life entered a brilliant, more meaningful new chapter. That historic match was not only Alicia's personal triumph, but also a defining moment in her career, transforming her from an unknown into a global symbol of courage, dignity, and resilience. Within just weeks of her stunning victory over Victoria, Alicia received countless offers from the world's leading sports brands. Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, and numerous other prestigious companies all wanted her as their ambassador, not only for her extraordinary talent, but for the inspiring story she embodied. Before long, Alicia signed multi-million-dollar contracts, becoming the most prominent female professional boxer on the planet. Yet Alicia understood that fame was not her ultimate goal. She remembered why she had stepped into the ring that day, not to prove she was superior to Victoria, but to send a clear message. No one has the right to look down on another because of their skin color, background, or circumstances. With that purpose in mind, Alicia resolved to use her new platform to help young people facing the same challenges she once did. With the support of Tom Rodriguez, Winston Bennett, and several respected figures in sports and society, Alicia created the Lightning Foundation, named after her childhood nickname. The foundation quickly became a bridge of opportunity for youth in underprivileged communities, offering free athletic training and educational scholarships to help them build brighter futures. Every day, Alicia visited struggling neighborhoods to meet, talk with, and encourage young people. She shared her life story with honesty and humility, showing them that no obstacle is insurmountable when you have courage and determination. Alicia became the ideal role model they yearned for, not just because of her boxing prowess, but because of her unwavering dignity and indomitable spirit. Although Alicia's name grew ever more renowned, she never used her fame to belittle anyone, even Victoria Sterling. She understood better than anyone what it felt like to be demeaned and hurt, and she refused to let others endure the same wounds. In every interview and public appearance, Alicia delivered a powerful message of compassion and the importance of rebuilding one's life. I never wanted my victory to be someone else's downfall. Victoria made a terrible mistake, but I hope she can find a way to rise from it and rebuild her life for the better. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we learn and how we change. Her sincere, empathetic words only deepened the admiration people felt for her whenever she appeared. The applause was not just for a skilled boxing champion, but for a woman with a generous heart who used her influence to spread profound humanitarian values. Of course, Alicia still faced tough questions from the media about Victoria. During one nationally televised interview, a reporter asked, "Alicia, what do you really feel about Victoria Sterling now after everything she said and suffered?" Alicia paused thoughtfully, her eyes reflecting her contemplation. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "I don't hate Victoria. Yes, she hurt me with her thoughtless words, but I don't believe that revenge or hatred will make my life better. I genuinely hope Victoria finds real peace and happiness, that she learns from her mistakes. If we never give people the chance to change, how can we hope for a better society?" Her answer drew thunderous applause from the studio audience and ignited a wave of praise on social media for her grace and compassion. People no longer saw her simply as a female boxer, but as a powerful emblem of forgiveness, reconciliation, and hope. Back at the Lightning Foundation, more and more young people came each day. Alicia's sponsored gyms filled with laughter and renewed optimism. Often she wasn't there to coach but simply to listen to their stories, share her experience, and encourage them to believe in themselves. One weekend afternoon, as she watched children eagerly training, Alicia remembered her own difficult past. She smiled, grateful for the trials that had made her stronger and taught her life's true value. She realized that titles, endorsements, and fame were fleeting. The most important gift she gained from that fateful match with Victoria was not glory or wealth, but the opportunity to devote her life to helping others, to spread self-respect, forgiveness, and love to everyone she could reach. And Alicia knew she had found her true path, a path of service, compassion, and hope, something no one, not even Victoria, could ever take away from her. While Alicia strengthened her reputation each day as a symbol of compassion and inner strength, on the other side, Victoria Sterling sank ever deeper into loneliness and regret. As time passed, Victoria no longer recognized the glamorous world she once belonged to. The doors that once swung wide open for her had firmly shut, leaving her alone with a harsh truth. People turned away not because she failed, but because of the grave mistakes she had made in the past. Victoria had believed that arrogance, fame, and power would forever protect her. But reality proved to be ruthlessly unforgiving. She lost everything, not only her endorsement deals, her prestige, and her devoted fans, but even her faith in herself. During those solitary days, Victoria began to look inward. And for the first time in her life, she asked herself, "What did I do wrong?" One morning, Victoria decided to step out from the shell of silence she had built around herself. She accepted an invitation to appear on a special interview show for a major television network, a program renowned for its candid, insightful explorations of people who have committed serious mistakes. Victoria knew this was her chance to speak the truth, to publicly acknowledge her faults, and to offer a sincere apology to Alicia and everyone she had hurt. On the day of filming, Victoria sat under the bright studio lights across from the show's famously calm and insightful host, Evelyn Brooks. A hush fell over the set as Evelyn began the interview. "Victoria, you were once a world champion boxer, but now everything has changed. Looking back on what happened, what do you consider your greatest mistake?" Victoria took a deep breath, her eyes shining with a sincerity that had never been there before. She replied in a soft but clear voice, "My greatest mistake wasn't losing the fight to Alicia. My greatest mistake was the arrogance and deep-seated prejudice I carried for so many years. I used hurtful words and racist attitudes to wound Alicia and many others. I believed a person's worth depended on their fame, their wealth, and the color of their skin. But now I know I was completely wrong." The studio fell silent. Evelyn gently continued, "What made you realize that mistake, Victoria?" Victoria's voice trembled as she spoke, each word laden with genuine remorse. "The fight with Alicia didn't just cost me my fame and status. It forced me to confront myself in a serious way for the first time. I watched the fight footage hundreds of times. Not to study my technique but to really look into Alicia's eyes at that moment. Eyes full of dignity and self-respect, without a trace of hatred. In that moment I understood that Alicia was far stronger than I was. True strength isn't in fame or money. It's in dignity, compassion, and the resilience to overcome adversity." Evelyn nodded and asked directly, "Are you saying these things because you want society to forgive you and welcome you back?" Victoria shook her head gently, tears welling in her eyes. I know society has turned its back on me and I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness. I just want to speak the truth from my heart because I understand I must face the consequences of my actions. I want to apologize sincerely to Alicia and to everyone who was hurt by my thoughtless words. I have lost everything, but I believe that was necessary for me to recognize my true worth. The interview went viral, racking up millions of views and comments. Some viewers believed in Victoria's remorse, but most remained skeptical, some even mocking her, accusing her of shedding crocodile tears to salvage her reputation. Victoria read every bitter comment, but this time she felt no anger or resentment. Instead, she accepted their judgment as part of her journey toward atonement. She understood that regaining trust and respect would not be easy, but at least now she appreciated the value of genuine humility. Over time, Victoria faded from the spotlight and retreated to a quieter, simpler life. She began volunteering at community centers, places she had never considered before. Each day she tried to give back in small ways, hoping to make amends for her past mistakes. One afternoon, as Victoria was tidying up at a small community center, she overheard two elderly women talking. She seems genuinely committed to changing, but I wonder if society will ever give her a chance. I don't know, but maybe the fact that she recognizes her mistakes and is striving to improve is already the best outcome. Hearing this, Victoria felt a small lift in her heart. She knew the road ahead would be long, but at least she had begun to walk in the right direction. She realized that acknowledging her mistakes, confronting them and trying to make them right was her greatest victory, not one of fame or fortune but one of growth, humility and above all, a second chance at life. As time passed and Victoria began to grasp the true value of humility and heartfelt atonement, Alicia Bennett, on the other side, kept solidifying her standing as a powerful emblem of self-respect, dignity and perseverance. After that fateful bout with Victoria, Alicia didn't rest on her personal fame or success. She understood that now more than ever she needed to use her platform to spark positive change for her community, especially for those who had faced hardships like she once did. Alicia's Lightning Foundation only grew stronger. What began as a small initiative has now expanded across the United States, establishing free sports and martial arts facilities in the country's most underserved neighborhoods. These centers aren't just places for young people to learn fighting techniques or get in shape. They're spaces where they learn to overcome adversity, maintain their self-respect and build confidence in themselves. Whenever she appeared in public, Alicia made one point crystal clear. I don't see my success as personal revenge against anyone, not even Victoria Sterling. What I truly want is to create opportunities, hope, and belief for anyone who has ever felt looked down on or insulted by society. Real success isn't about defeating other people. It's about overcoming the stereotypes and limits that others impose on us. Those messages spread far and wide, earning the attention and support of millions around the globe. Alicia traveled regularly to schools, community centers, and major events to share her story, inspiring young people to understand that no barrier can hold them back if they hold fast to their self-respect and belief. One of her most memorable days came when she was invited to speak at the United Nations General Assembly before thousands of delegates from countries all over the world. Standing at the podium, her voice strong and impassioned, she said, "We can't control how others see or judge us, but we can absolutely control how we respond. I was once a girl from a tough neighborhood in Detroit, looked down on for my background and my skin color. But I've learned that self-respect is the greatest power a person can possess, and no one can take that from us unless we give it up ourselves." That speech was broadcast across global media channels, turning Alicia into a worldwide icon of triumph over adversity and prejudice. As Alicia's legacy continued to shine, across town in a modest apartment, Victoria Sterling sat alone, eyes fixed on her TV screen. She watched Alicia in another world title fight. Still as strong, agile, and determined as ever. Each punch Alicia delivered carried power, but also a deep sense of dignity and respect for her opponent. Victoria felt something strange stir in her heart. Genuine admiration, free of jealousy or resentment. She realized that Alicia fought not just for herself, but on behalf of millions who had been belittled and hurt by people like Victoria in the past. When the match ended, Alicia raised her hand in victory, her face glowing with joy and gratitude. Stepping to the microphone, she smiled sincerely and humbly. I want to thank everyone who believed in me and even those who doubted me, because each of you helped me understand who I am and what I must do. I will continue fighting not only in the ring but in life to inspire others to believe they can achieve the extraordinary as long as they believe in themselves." Victoria sat motionless before the screen, tears streaming down her cheeks. For the first time in her life, she felt deeply that Alicia had taught her an invaluable lesson. A lesson about self-respect, dignity, and true greatness. Victoria now understood that true strength doesn't lie in reigning at the top or winning fights, but in rising again after a fall, acknowledging one's mistakes and rediscovering one's real worth. The TV's glow faded as the program ended. But in Victoria's mind, Alicia's image remained bright, a living symbol of courage and resolve. She now knew her life could never go back to what it was. Yet she still had the chance to change, to build a better future. In that small apartment, Victoria sat in silence for a long time. But for the first time ever, she felt at peace. She realized that while life could take away everything she once held dear, the profound lesson Alicia taught her would endure forever. A lesson on genuine greatness, the dignity of the human spirit, and the power of transformation. That night, Victoria closed her eyes in serenity, knowing that although she had made many mistakes, she had finally learned to accept them, to make amends, and to grow from them. And all of that was thanks to Alicia Bennett, the unassuming woman she once looked down upon, who ultimately taught her the greatest lesson of her life. Thus, Alicia Bennett's story is not just one of a woman rising from adversity. It stands as the clearest testament that self-respect and dignity always outshine prejudice, discrimination, or scorn. Sometimes our greatest challenges become the very opportunities through which we discover our true value. What about you? Have you ever faced a moment when your self-respect was put to the test? How did you overcome it? Share your story in the comments below. If Alicia's journey inspired you and helped reinforce your belief in yourself, be sure to like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.